need to be deeply and sharply aware is the thing that grows into a mind that can experience all things, a mind of enlightenment. So if you think, even if you have a tiny hope that maybe this thing called enlightenment can occur to me, to my world, to my view, if it's ever occurred to you as a possibility, or conversely, if you are fed up of trying to get happy with all the other techniques that we've learned in our lives, the ones we go to school for, the ones that we see in movies, the ones that the human race have done from time without beginning. Get married, have babies, eat food, have sex, watch movies, watch gladiators, fight, hunt animals, etc. All these things we try. So if that hasn't woken you up to say, oh, I'm sort of fed up of trying that mode, maybe there is something, wherever you've got that in your consciousness at whatever period of life you're in, if you have or have not had a major catastrophe in your life, all you need to do is look at a person that's 3, 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you and see what's in store for you. Just look at a human life from beginning to end. We're all ending in the same place if things remain normal. So I'm asking you, please, to desperately look for that part of you that hooks onto a hope that a freedom from that state of being is possible. And yes, it's got a name, nirvana, and yes, we call these things enlightenment, but don't conceptualize it. Think of it as a real thing. Your state of being has the capacity to be bright and aware and rich and filled with beauty without a single smidgen of dissatisfaction. Not a single thing afflicting your awareness. Possible. And so to whatever degree you find that possible, I beg you, please, connect to that for you. Connect to that for you. That's the only reason to come. It's the only reason to teach. It's the only reason to be. So I hope to, when you leave tonight, that something strong has seeded in your consciousness that will serve you for the rest of your life. That's the point of these teachings. So with that, let's bribe the enlightened side of you for a blessing, David.
Sashi
Bukir Jishin Metotram Rira Lingshin Yindegam Padi Sange Shindu Mite Vargi Drokun Namda Shimla Juparsho Hiram Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Ninyatayami
Sange
Shriram Soki Choknam La Janshu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Shinyen Gipe Sonamki Drola Benchir Sange Drupansho
Sange
Shriram Soki Choknam La Janshu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Dahi Shinyen Gipe Sonamki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho
Sange
Shriram Soki Choknam La Janshu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Shinyen Gipe Sonamki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho.
Okay, so we just took refuge, right? That was that blah 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 blah. Yeah, that was refuge. Words conceptualize. In your heart, what should you be feeling, and in your mind, what should you be thinking? If I can separate this. Let's bring blah 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 blah. Spit it out.
I'm not sure what the question
We just did a refuge prayer. What should you be what should you be feeling and thinking as you say those words?
about taking refuge in the Buddha, Sangha, and
Cool. I'm just doing a review, you see, because we did, I think, the first thing we did last class was we began the Lamrim Dudun, right, the short Lamrim from Tsongkhapa, and we covered the first Lam, which was the first part, which was, well, Lam A. Find a teacher. Yeah, like get yourself to anything that resembles a vessel for wisdom for you. Yeah, it could be a cockroach. Probably shouldn't be, but it could be. If you're virtuous enough, it could be. And then we talked about the objects of refuge and why they are refuge, and that, to the best of your ability, every time you do this prayer, you should be considering the Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and Sangha jewel as best as you can, as elevated as you can, and you've got to work with your mind to try constantly to get to that state of mind. So, what should you be thinking when you think Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel?
The version of yourself that is eventually enlightened, that is a clear light mind.
That's great. So that's for a Buddha jewel. The mind of a Buddha is
Going for refuge in that.
great. Going for refuge meaning.
Going for refuge meaning taking solace in that, or finding shelter in that.
You need two things for refuge. First of all, you need to
feel that you need help.
Yeah, you need help. You're afraid of something, right? And you're going for shelter to something that you think can help you, right? So what do you need help from?
Something that's hurting you.
The samsaric existence, yeah? The fact of suffering, yeah? And why would a Buddha jewel help you? Because remember, people got slaughtered by the Buddha himself. So why would going, no, Buddha jewel help you?
Because it's the mind that experiences the two truths. That it's the mind that goes beyond just samsara experiences. So samsara and nirvana is one.
So what do you mean? You're thinking of a Buddha's mind?
You have the same mind that the Buddha
Nice.
has.
Your mind has the same basis as a quality. You don't have the same mind as a Buddha, right? But
Same
you're
potential.
the same potential. And give the name to that potential. What is the basis of the Buddha's mind and the basis of your mind? What's exactly the same about those two minds?
The emptiness
The
is
fact that they don't have an inherent existence. They are not an afflicted Hector mind or a blissful Buddha mind from their own side, separate from causes and conditions that made them that way, right? They became that because something made them that. Therefore, the blank screen of both minds can project all sorts of things. This one projects unto itself the awareness, I am completely at peace. It's not faked, it's not pretend, it's a real experience, it's true. But it came out of emptiness, a lack of inherent existence of that mind. That mind isn't fixed that way. It can become perpetually self-viewing that way. But this mind here, the Hector mind, has the same potential. It's a blank screen, but what's being projected on the screen is suffering. The fact that those minds are both blank screens through which one can experience a thing, and this one experiences bliss, free from suffering, and this one experiences less suffering. That fact is the refuge. That my mind has that potential. It is fertile ground for enlightenment. I just don't have a crop yet. Yeah? I've got weeds. Or at least that's truly how I experience my every day. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I think I've got everything all right, and then boom, as soon as I think I do, I drop. I get upset, I get disappointed, I get self-judging, or I encounter a smelly person on the side. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too out there, but I
Probably is, but let's go for it.
Maybe it's a good thing. I take refuge in emptiness, in empty of attachment, empty of projection, empty of to try to create a blank slate inside.
How can that help you? So how can that actually remove any suffering that you experience? The
Because
fact
the suffering is attachment.
So by removing attachment, can you?
And I thought that was one of the things we're trying to do.
No, it is a result of experiencing emptiness that you have no attachment. Yeah. So by trying to will that, I guess it can. If that works for you.
But now willing it, more meditating, studying, doing.
So abiding in it, you're saying?
Abiding, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. So then, look, emptiness is the answer to it all, right? So being in a state of emptiness. I wanted to ask you, because as we're sitting there doing that, I experience this room, myself and you, most of the time as normal, like we're just people. But then every now and then, I get a glimpse at the magnificent beauty that is in our connection together. The magnificent beauty that are in the words here, that are in the experiences we share, in the hopes that we share, in the subtle movement of each other. And I'm like, wow, in this very room, if my mind did not have those weeds, whenever I could see through the weeds, I see the forest, I see the crop. Yeah, and truly I hear your sound, so I close my eyes and I hear us going for refuge, and I am imagining, I'm feeling, I'm habituated to seeing Buddhas calling, Bodhisattvas calling, in the sounds and resonances of your voices. Yeah, and that's refuge. Okay, review. Do you remember, I did it again. Give me some of the 10 qualities. Give me some of the 10 qualities of the first Lam. The first path in the Lam Rim, right, which is the entire path in the Buddha's teaching. Give me anything you remember, because whatever you remember is whatever you're habituating, practicing, and if you don't, then I don't know what you're doing every day. Give me some of the qualities you recall about looking for that vessel, that teacher, yeah? Someone you can rely on to share wisdom with you.
Ideally, it's somebody who's experienced or seen energy and stuff.
That's a good, nice thing. Do you remember Emily's question? Do they have to be a Buddhist? Do you remember? Or a monk? Yeah.
No, but shouldn't they have taken vows? Or been practicing?
They should be practicing some morality. Great. Yeah. Ideally, if they're in this path, they should have all sorts of vows, right? What kind of vows? What kind of morality?
Vinaya, Bodhisattva.
Vinaya, which is Pratimoksha vows, freedom, individual freedom vows. Bodhisattva vows, which is I'm not alone in this suffering world. Let me figure out how to get us all out. And all tantric vows. Great. But it might not be a monk for you. It might not be a nun. It might not be an ordained person. It might not be a Buddhist for you. To find the thing, the spark, the words from a being that connects you so much to that hope as a reality of enlightenment that you must see them as living a moral life. Yeah, a perfected moral life. So at the bare minimum, you should observe in them the 10 non-virtues. Yeah. Great. Or not the 10 non-virtues.
aircraft view or control themselves ethically?
Are you cheating? I'm trying to get you to remember.
They cheat
Yeah?
all the time.
So.
It's not cheating, I just know.
No, it's good, yeah. Here they are. Just as a member, but at the bare minimum, the 3 trainings, right? Wisdom, concentration, ethics. Not in that order. Love. They shouldn't get tired of teaching you. Yeah? Like you ask them the same stupid question and you don't feel rejected asking them the same stupid question. Yeah. No, I go back to my teachers often about the same stupid things, you know, and I do everything possible to write it down and figure out what they told me, and then like it's 5 years later and I'm like, I really don't understand. Why is it that, you know? And so I'm embarrassed to ask them, but every time I go to them, it's complete and beautiful acceptance. Like they love me, you know, and I feel loved. Yeah, sometimes it's a tough love. Okay. Reviewed. There were 2 things that Tsongkhapa said in his Lamrim, 2 essential things that after we talked about finding a teacher, we said, if you're going to get enough power, virtue in your mind, there's 2 things you should do. The first advice was, take refuge. And the second one was, so what does taking refuge do according to the instructions he gave? It protects you from collecting non-virtue, right? So it prevents you from creating the causes and conditions of a suffering future for yourself. So you're cleaning future karma. You're beginning to clear the way, right? But then what do you still have? You have past karma. So what the second instruction, so the first one was, take refuge, right? Prevents your future trouble. The second one was, for powers, clear up, do purification, because you've got following behind, meaning your mind has the habit of returning, mirroring back all the things that you did in ignorance. And even if you had to do all of the negative thoughts you collected last week alone, if you had to clean them alone, really think about it. If every single negative act of body, speech and mind that you were aware of yourself doing last week alone, if they were real seeds in your consciousness ready to take root in a very fertile thing called your mind, you should be figuring out how desperately to pull them out. And if that's just 1 week, how many times were you rude to someone, were angry at someone, were frustrated, were self-judgmental, were lazy with yourself, were I was going to say self-deprecating, that's not what I meant. Self-deprecating. Yeah, thank you. English second language. How many times did you think yourself normal? How many times did you think this is really how you're going to end up? Yeah, if they are the thing that's seeding your consciousness, and just in 1 week, you had to say, if they were real objects, like seeds, in the ground, and you could feel them taking root because it had rained, and you'd have to go and find them and dig them out. Imagine then what a year's worth, what 2 years' worth, what a lifetime's worth. And the scriptures say we don't just live one life, right? That the consciousness that popped into being here, we did the whole study in ACI 4, right? It was caused by previous experiences and previous encounters. We'll talk a little bit about that today. So the essence here, purify, purify, purify. And start with the big, chunky, hairy things. The ones that are always, they're so you that it's like that, this is water thing we talked about. You know, that people are reminding you, or you crash into the same problem all the time. There's something in that for you. Imagine if you took a chunk of that afflicted mind and you reduced it even by a half. Whatever that is for you. It could be jealousy, envy, anger, soft, nobody loves me, I'm not whatever the most negative thing is. Imagine if you could reduce that by half, how much bandwidth you'd have for a life, for a beautiful life. You can do it. Like it's a possible thing. You're not stuck like that. It's not like you're not made like that. It's not fixed like that. It's a changing thing. But how does it change? Are you going to leave it to its own devices, or are you going to try and bonsai it? Yeah, I'm full of metaphors today. Okay, I want to talk about your mind. Let's talk about this. So I'm going to talk about the first thing that I'm going to try and get your mind to. So that was review. Yeah, it's on cover. Talk a lot about take a teacher, find a teacher. If you do nothing else, if you haven't got somebody in your heart that you say, I can't wait to be next to them, please help me, please teach me, you've got something I would like to develop in me, and they have some qualities around it. They're not schmucks and they're not weird and they're not, they are genuinely there to help you, and you perceive them that way, follow them. Yeah? Follow them. Once it's closed, once you've checked and verified, dive in. What do you have to lose? Except your ego, your negativity, your normality. Or just live everyone else's life, up to you. See that little pulsing thing at the top? I'm trying to do metaphors, right? This is your mind, moment after moment after moment, one touching the other, moving the other, moving the other. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So, Robin Williams killed himself. Yeah? We know people that have done that. We think someone, maybe they thought it would end. It doesn't end. The theory here is it doesn't end. Under analysis, you can figure out that previous moment of awareness produced this awareness. It doesn't stop. It just continues. And it continues in the direction of what you've been habituating, developing, the flavor, the color, the thing. That's not a constant, that's a changing. It morphs, but it doesn't stop. That's the infinity, that's the divinity, that's the infinite, that's the godlike, that doesn't stop. So you can't even, you can't say, okay, I'm going to kill myself, finished. Duh, no. It just means more of the same, but with less control. Because it's reset. And all you have is a bag of those karmas just spilled out, ready to create a new existence. So I want to talk about the human existence. I want to talk about the Lamrim starts teaching, a way to describe the Lamrim is it talks about people of three capacities, right? So lower capacity, medium capacity, or greater capacity. And really they are defined by the goal that a mind has, that a person has in relation to a practice. And in this case we're talking Tibetan Buddhist practice because we've written it down that way. But please try and think of it as I am a human. I feel this existence. Let's look at this existence. And what do I hope? What's my refuge? What do I hope to get by doing all the things I'm doing as a human? And so the Buddhist part says, if you could be divided into three groups of people that are living their lives and hoping for something, right? To be called a Buddhist, you're either a person of the lesser capacity, medium capacity, or greater capacity. I thought, easy, no problem. I want the greater capacity, please. But it's not a choice like we think you're choosing, I like that one and I don't like that one and I'll have 4 of these. It's not a choice. It's actually a checking in to what drives you. Why are you doing this stuff? What do you believe you're doing this stuff for? And you checking that determines what capacity you're in the Lamrim. Does that make sense? Yeah? I need nodding so I can feel I'm talking to the enlightened beings who are going, yes, Hector, you've got it. Thank you. Okay. So let's just take a look at this human experience. And sometimes what was the movie? Eagle versus Shark, right? This is beautiful lady in it, it's Lillian. She's just this lovely girl, and terrible things happen to her, but she's like, gets a little bit upset, but not too upset, you know? And she says, in this beautiful line in this movie, she says, you know, life it's got some bad bits, but it's also got some lovely bits. You know, it's got some yucky bits and some lovely bits, and this is true of a human moment. You know, we have, in the range of experience that you know as a human, that you can verify as a human, you've got some pretty normal moments. Some are higher than others. So your mind bursts into a moment of awareness. Try and think of it not in the way we normally think of life happening to us, but try and think of it as your mind experiencing the world in a certain way. Your mind bursting a karma into being, and here we have 3 tiny karmas, right? A moment I'm feeling quite normal in the range of high to low of human existence, a nice big moment, and then followed by a slightly happier moment, and then not so happy. Yeah, a little bit, oh, I got a little sad. It's just like that, it happens like that, it happens in a millisecond. We do like the dot at the top, non-stop, non-stop, non-stop. And it doesn't matter if you're enjoying a cup of coffee. Sometimes coffee's terrible, sometimes coffee's great. It's not in the coffee. It's your mind going. There's some lovely bits, there's some not so lovely bits. Yeah? And then other times we're in love and we're fantastic and we even go beyond the human realm. Like, I'm so blissed out, I just had 3 orgasms. You know? Seriously, we have these magnificent, beautiful experiences that we catch ourselves in, and it's magic. Human experience. It's lovely. And then not so good. We usually, you know, well, it's true. We're like, we want more of that. And as soon as we grab it, it's, yeah. And so they disappear, and then we get some negative things, you know, like if you think, and some are so close to the bare bottom that you think, like, I don't know what went through Robin Williams' mind, but you're in despair. You're in complete despair, and you've had depression, and you've had negativity, and you've seen people with these things, and this is the human experience. Sometimes in war, when in rage, we're almost animals. Sometimes we hurt each other in a way that is beyond human. So then this is the range of existence, and it doesn't stop as a human, right? And then according to the Buddhists and according to you, that's not the only realm we see. That's a tiny group. You put together all the fish in the ocean, all the animals on land, all the birds, and they have lovely bits and medium bits, but they're not quite as lovely as some of us with our leisure and fortune. Right? We talked about the animal realm when we did the course, and some of those experiences, if you're lucky, so I'll put that little bit there in the human realm because of puppy dogs like this, you know, that humans tend to take care of and spend money and lavish on and love them. And they have some awesome experiences, but they are rare and few and far between. The vast majority of the animal kingdom is normal animal experience. Don't be eaten, try and eat something, protect your young, run, fly, swim, dive, run. Some don't even sleep, right? And then some of them get caught by humans and made to work. And I mean, I've seen the most horrific videos on YouTube of what we do to animals. We skin them alive. We cut their throats. We bleed them. We force them to work for us. This is a mind continuing in that creature. And we can verify this. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I'm saying reality check. This is the range of human and animal experience we can verify. You can talk to the animal. You can say, don't go run over there. You get eaten by lions. It won't get it from you. Human realm, animal realm. Yeah? We can verify that, yeah?
What about animals that serve humans and have greater capacity, like seeing eye dogs or something like that?
Yeah, but like they could have that being could have a complete experience, but instead you're chaining it up to some blind person, so the blind person will walk around, and it doesn't have any kind of free will. It doesn't choose where it eats. We are forcing it to do stuff for us. Yes, we feed it. Yes, it might be up there, whatever. But as this, imagine tying you up to serve for you to serve someone else that might be a nice, angelic, lovely person, but you're choked up and you're tied up, and then you get to only do what that person needs. And I'm not saying that the animal conceptualizes it that way. I'm just saying what to do with an existence called life, and for that thing, that very lucky puppy who got to serve a human, right? It sort of has to do what we tell it to. It can't have free roam. It can't roam and feed itself and relax. And if it did, it would still have to chase, be careful not to be eaten or eat something and scavenge. I'm just saying, just plain look at it.
When you say like sometimes it's like a symbiotic relationship.
Doesn't make a difference. The mind of that animal continues.
You're still thinking don't.
Well,
eat
it's
and
just
don't-
experiencing, being pulled here, being pulled there, being choked up here. Wake up when I decide, not when you. I mean, it's just having those experiences. You can't understand the world in the way that you've been able to articulate and understand. It's locked within that band. I'm trying to
Right.
highlight that it's locked
Right.
within that band, as we are locked within
Yeah.
that band we just explained.
Okay.
It's like
That's
a
all I'm
9 to
saying.
5 job.
It's a 9 to 5 job. And then, of course, the scriptures say, Buddhism says, and others, and other traditions say that's not the only limit. There are other realms, and when we did the Wheel of Life and the Preta realm, the same thing. Experiences of, I mean, it's not hard to imagine. Whatever torture you've ever had, whatever worst depression you've ever had, it's just a projection. It's just a moment of mind. It drops and it goes next. It drops and it goes next. So find the worst, disgusting, most horrible experience you've ever had, and just double it, and you've got a animal experience. It's not like unfathomable. It's not impossible. And actually, when you understand that the world is not at you, but you are projecting your world, and therefore it's real, the fact that it is your mind creating these experiences as a real, tangible thing makes it even more possible that all these realms can be jumped between. It just takes 3 breaths between one realm to another. It just takes 3 breaths between you being happy or depressed. It just takes a phone call, your mum's dead. It doesn't take very much. And then our whole mind shifts. And at the transition, where we say the body stopped moving, nobody, who says the mind stops moving? We had that whole discussion in ACI 4. But I don't want to convince you of this stuff now, I want you to just consider. So the person of lesser capacity, right? So we said that according to these teachings, there are 3, in the Lamrim there are 3 divisions, right? Person of lesser capacity, medium capacity. The person of lesser capacity says, I'm going to get this stuff, I'm going to internalize this stuff, I'm going to try and figure this stuff out so I can cut myself off from any lower birth. I don't want any suffering beyond the human world. So every activity, every meditation, every goodness, every giving, every kindness, every morality is for the goal in the back of your mind, right? For you to have no future rebirths that are lower than human. That's the lowest capacity. That requires you to believe that your mind continues. That requires you to believe that your mind can continue to a place beyond the realm of human existence. If we don't have that, we don't even qualify as people of the lowest capacity. And most of my life, I don't. Most of my life, I just want a better tomorrow. That does not mean Lamrim. Yeah? So when I got that, I'm like, whoa, I have to work harder. I have to really not just sit there and listen to Geshe Michael and the other teachers say this stuff. I have to really think, hold on, that blind seeing eye dog, that's a mind experiencing existence. That mosquito I just squashed, that's a mind experiencing existence. its experience of existence was caused by something. That mind had causality. That mind, the little pops and drops that I was trying to slow down, it's just that movement. And if it's human and animal, then why not a little bit higher, a little bit lower? You know? And so the person of lower capacity, which we've already discussed in the Arm Rim, their main instruction is go for refuge. Don't do the 10 non-virtues. Go for refuge. That's the advice for them. If you don't want to have a non-human rebirth, you want to have a human rebirth or above. If you want to maintain this precious thing that we call human, at the bare minimum, don't plant any more crappy karma. Think of refuge, qualifies you as a Buddhist, and non-virtues, right? But even me saying it sounds like Buddhist instruction. And yes, it's a Buddhist instruction, but it's got to be applicable to you. You've got to think about it for you. Otherwise, it's just talk. Yeah? I'm going to cover just quickly that a person of medium capacity then grabs all those realms and says, I want out of that whole thing. I want out of that whole samsara. I want happy rainbow. I want out of the entire cycle. I don't want any more of any of it. I don't care if it's human or demigod. Or if it ends and cycles and ends and cycles and it's produced and starts and I'm out of control in it, I want out altogether. That means nirvana. That means I want freedom from the mind that continuously ebbs and flows without seeming control. And I don't care what shape and color it takes, I want out. Medium capacity. Their main instruction, which I'll cover later on today, is the 4 Arial truths. Yeah, their instruction is activate the 4 Arial truths. And I'll describe what that means in a second. And lastly, you want not just out of the cycle for you, you want it for everybody. And Tsongkhapa in his Lamrim, this is the greatest scope. This is bodhicitta. This is the wish for enlightenment for the sake of every living being. You want not just out for yourself, you don't want nirvana, you want Buddhahood. Yeah? And it's not a want as in an ignorant want. It's a realization that there is no other thing but you projecting all these beings in the suffering world. So you have to fix that. This Tsongkhapa calls the alchemical elixir. And from what I read up, apparently, you know what alchemy is? You turn base metals into gold through all these instructions in. And there are 3 great phases of alchemy in the world, and they happen simultaneously in Europe and in Asia and so on. Nagarjuna was kicked out of Nalanda. Did you know this? For practicing real alchemy, because he was trying to make cash for the monastery, right? So he was Nagarjuna, who's like the greatest wisdom practitioner, the teacher, emanation, etc. Got kicked out of Nalanda for practicing alchemy. But the alchemy here refers to the alchemy of your mind, yeah, and I'll cover that in a second. So then, the person of a greater scope does exactly the same activity as the person of the medium scope, or the person of the lesser scope. Their motivation is just different. So if you're going to sit there for 10 minutes and do this, or if you're going to sit there and do this, to shift from nirvana to enlightenment, you just have to begin the process of enacting a motivation that's greater than I just want it okay for me. Yeah? Now, like I said, it's not a choice as in I pick this one. It's what are you actually doing when you sit down and meditate? What are you actually doing when you're talking to somebody? What are you actually doing when we go with 108 Lives and help the people in Nepal? What's happening in your mind?
So if it's not really a choice, what is the cause?
I didn't mean it like that. I mean, it's not a menu you pick, as in when I first heard the 3 scopes, yeah, I'm like, of course I want the top of the line Rolls Royce, yeah, and yes I do, and I might go towards that, but the reality is, as I'm sitting here talking with you, is my mind, and I'll talk about what is this alchemical elixir that Tsongkhapa talks about when he refers to the activity of the greater scope. What is going through my mind, what's going through my consciousness as I'm answering your question? Am I answering it to just normal David in the hope that I sound clever? Sometimes I do that, right? That's not the greater scope. So in that respect, I'm saying it's not a choice. So then I catch myself being an idiot, and then I work that motivation, and then my next conversation with you has a little bit of an up. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying I've decided I'm a person of the greater scope, ladies and gentlemen, and everything I've ever done from now on is it's not that, you know, it's like, have you ever decided to take up a musical instrument? Have you ever decided to paint? Have you ever decided to write poetry? Have you ever decided, I want to be Shakespeare? You know? Well, okay, good. Write me something. It's different. It's not that choice. You know, that's what I was trying to say. It's not like all of a sudden, because I want to be a writer, I will be Shakespeare. You know? You can't be Shakespeare anymore. He's dead. Right? You have to be David. But what kind of writer is David? You can aim, be inspired by Shakespeare. In that sense, you have choice. I'm not saying you don't have choice. But what is the reality of what you're actually doing for you? For you, because you are the loader of your projector. Yeah? So...
So trippy tonight.
I know, it's like, woo, I'm going babe, I'm going wild. Yeah, no, it's the last class. Do you guys need a break? Yes or no?
As opposed
I'm
to
gonna
not
take a-
having one? or-
No, a break now or in 20 minutes? 20 minutes, okay, let's talk. Let's see, going from referee, vessel capacity, I've told you, human, blah, blah, blah. Do you remember the instruction for which of the scopes the 4 aerial truths were? Medium, right? What defines a person of a medium scope?
What they want out of the cycle of samsara.
Right, so all you have to do is, if you've been to the Wheel of Life teaching, you just want out of samsara.
Right.
Right? You want out of the clutches of Yama, Mr. Bear. Okay, there's many ways to teach the 4 aerial truths. And there are many. Actually, let's see if you know or remember, where do the 4 aerial truths come from? What are they? What was the experientially? What are they? And
First teachings of the Buddha.
first teaching of the Buddha. But where do they come from? Like, why teach it that way? Why teach that?
Because it's the basis of
Yeah, it's the noble truths. It's what he saw immediately.
it's the way out.
Cool.
The path.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is, see there's 2 numbers there? There's 2 ways of sharing this. One is the order in which he taught them, or the order in which we experience, right?
The order in which he experienced.
We experience it, these truths. And the word truth is not quite the translation. It's one of the early translations, but the word is more fact, according to my teacher. It's a fact. This thing is a fact. It's an undisputable fact. And the only one we can verify that of the 4, if you remember them, is number 1. Right? So then there's a second order. There's an order of causation, if you like. Yeah. So I'm going to just start with the way that we bump into these facts. And the first fact we bump into is the fact of suffering, right? The truth of suffering. And like I said, there's lots of different ways you can explain these things. So in this course, we have put two per, yeah? There's two subdivisions of each. You can divide lots of things in here. But the truth of suffering can be taught as an impure vessel and impure content, which means this world, this phone, this body, this cup or bottle, this room, this air, everything in this world, the vessel, and then the content is the living beings, the creatures, the realms we just covered. So anything in here that might give you any kind of displeasure, right? If you don't like salsa water, and it's already on the yucky side, it's a suffering because you don't like it. But if you do like it, because it's here, it must necessarily end. And the argument is that anything, even if it's a pleasure, that must necessarily be followed by a suffering or separation is not a pleasure at all. Because then we miss it, we long it, we get addicted to finding the next one, the next one, the next one. So then the ups and downs of that human and the animal and all the other realms, these are sufferings. The experiences these beings are having and the place the experiences are occurring. What's the next one?
That beings in all realms, right? Like even,
Yep.
like
Anything
any
inside
being in
this
the
wheel.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything inside the wheel. The fact of the source of suffering. You guys spell sauce all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there a difference between tomato sauce and...
Yeah.
I sometimes get nervous about those things.
This is not tomato.
English is a second language.
If you're from the South, you can spell it S-A-W-C.
Sauce.
Then it has to be hot.
Mhm. Let's see. What is it? Mine.
Animal
So
mind.
let me just go back, because the first and the second one, anything that is a suffering or a source of suffering, anything that is a suffering can also be said to be a source of suffering. So the first two are really suffering. Yeah. The bottom line is that the vessels and the content, the world we're living and the living beings here, have something defective about them, hence breaking down. There's some energy that's defective about it. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong and bad and terrible. It just means that there is something about the thing that produced them to start with that has something, some energetic problem with it that must necessarily destroy it. Yeah? Which then leads us to the next thing, is that, well, the way we bump into this fact is, I just got hurt. I got dumped by the job, I got heartbroken, my family, I got a serious disease, I got old, I got stupid, whatever it is, we bump into it. Yeah? To generalize. Or, I don't like the taste of this, and I don't like the house I'm living in, and the rain is wet on my face, and whatever. Yeah? So we bump into it, and then it might occur to us to look for the source of that suffering. Right? So in terms of experience, we go, oh, we bumped into suffering, and then we think, oh, what could have made that happen? Right? But in terms of the timeline of what causes of these four aerial truths, is that something caused it, produced the suffering. See, so number two is really number one, producing number two, which is really number one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just there's a way to teach it that way as well. I just wanted to share that with you. So what is that defective thing? What is that energy that produces things that we bump into in this world that hurts us? that we get separated from, that we dislike, that we're never satisfied. I mean, in the previous course we did the 6 sufferings, but the one that kept coming to mind for me, the one that was really incessant, is the fact that even if we get what we like, we are never satisfied. We just want more. Like, even if you got everything today that you could possibly dream of in this worldly way, I don't know how long it will take you, but you will want more. Or less, if it's ice cream, and you can't eat it anymore. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? You recognize that about yourself. So just look at it straight and squarely in the face with some wisdom and say, well, does it have to be that way? Is that the way we're stuck? Is that the only way? Is that, like, analytically consider whether that's the way it has to be. And the fact is, it's not. It's a coarse thing. It's produced. It can change. It does change. But it might need some extraordinary, beyond ordinary power, energy, to shift it out of that mode of existence. Yeah? So to recognize what is causing the suffering, we look at that, we say, okay, that hurt. What made it hurt? Ignorance is the thing that is the defective thing. Not knowing where things come from is the defective thing. Is the thing that creates all these things to break down in the way that they break down for us. Because we're out there working this world to try and change the experiences we're having. It's not connected. We're moving the pieces, we're punching the people, we're stealing the money, we're all these things. We think if we move all these things around, somehow the emotions that I'm having, the experiences that we call suffering, are going to go away. That didn't cause that. That was the vehicle through which I had this experience. There is some dependent origination there, yes. But it's not the cause. So what is the cause of my dissatisfaction? And what is the cause of my disappointment? And what is the cause of my joy that then went away? And what is the cause of my aging? And what is the cause? If we think of them in the way that I tried to highlight there, that it's just a moment of mind and a moment of mind, pushing a moment of mind, pushing a moment of mind, then it's something in your mind. And then you have power to work with your motivation, then you have choice. Punch him in the face or don't punch him in the face. If your motivation is clean and pure, you're going to get the exact result of what your mind was imputing on that action. Sometimes you need to punch him in the face, but punch him in the face with love. No, some people need it. Some people need it. I mean, I'm not suggesting you go out and punch people in the face. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to wake you up.
I think you might have just answered a question that I've had for a long time. Which that's awesome. That's an awesome setup.
You can look at me when you're going to say it.
But so I've always wondered, like, what about people who are, like terrorists, for example, who purely 100% are like, this is for God, and they go and they do this thing. But I guess, is it right to say that energetically speaking, if there isn't an experience of love, it doesn't really matter if it's like, if it's like, yeah, like this is for God, you know what I mean? Like,
a self-existent God that is going to self-existently reward you for a self-existent thing?
No, but even if it was for a self-existent God that would self-existently, if it was a pure experience of, like maybe that would produce actually good karma.
I mean, in their mind, they have some sort of divinity.
Yeah, so did Hitler. Yeah, but
I don't think Hitler, like just from my perception of Hitler, which is a projection, I don't imagine him in his killing being like
lovey-dovey. Yeah,
it was like,
no, but I think he thought he was saving the planet.
He thought he was helping the world.
But psychologically is different from energetically, is what I'm saying. Like,
look, the fact that your actions of mind, your actions and the motivation that moves those actions are all that your future is going to be. Yeah? And if you see slapping somebody in the face or blowing up human parts to bits, you can't unrecord that or separate that from part of the experience, even if it is for a self-existent God or dependent originating God. You cannot separate your experience of what you've done.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying go around and punch people in the face, right? But I'm saying, I mean, that there are times where you have to act so extreme to stop somebody from hurting themselves or others that you might have to do something that seems harsh. But your motivation better be clean, meaning your wisdom better be strong.
But you would collect both karmas. So
You
like,
can't help but collect what you experience.
but one of those karmas would be if I was a crazy terrorist person and I killed 8 people, but did it with complete love and compassion for these people, I would collect both of those karmas.
You
right?
must.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, when we were talking about, but like sometimes, right, like, if someone's, like, cause this brings me back to like what we were talking about, where like, if someone's angry with you and you're talking to them, and the situation is escalating, and then you walk away to prevent those bad seeds of anger, then isn't that a higher form of karma to like prevent them from like developing those seeds
Okay,
of anger?
let me ask you this. Does walking away from an escalating situation always result in a better result?
Just walk.
Does walking away from an escalating situation
Always.
always?
No, it can't
No.
always.
Can't always. So
But
your,
if
your
you're-
mind has to consider where your motivation is good, right?
Right.
You don't. So what will that result in?
Well, it could, right? Like, so, isn't it like good karma if you are trying to prevent them from sowing more negative seeds of karma?
Sure.
By being angry?
What's your question?
No, I'm saying like you still kind of collect both, right? Like because
Whenever you are doing, always the answer to karma is you collect 2. Yeah, always you get 2 because you got your motivation, but then you also got
Right.
the reality of the experience.
actual-
I know sometimes when I argue with Stephen and I'm quiet, I know desperately I'm trying not to plant any more seeds of anger,
Right.
right? But then I also know it pisses him off a little.
Right,
Yeah, I can't help but know that.
right.
And so for me, it's this tug of war between my mind is collecting both
Good and
the
bad.
coding.
Right.
The coding's happening millisecond to millisecond, right? And there's no hiding from it.
Right.
Hence the practice of meditation and
Right.
having clear awareness of what your mind is doing, because that gives you more leeway about, okay, I'm very clear here. I am now silent to piss him off rather than to save us a fight. So I better speak up now. And then sometimes, no, I despite that I need to argue now, despite I need to talk about it now, I can't do it because I know the next words come out is probably not going to be the best motivated word. So let's not go there right now.
Right, because even if you think you're saving the world, right? Like, even if like Hitler was doing it for like what he saw as a pure motivation, he's still
He will get if that's true, yeah.
He's still killing, which is one of the 10 non-virtues. So
He must
he's
experience
collecting
it.
that karma too.
He
right?
must absolutely, yeah.
So if you're not physically experiencing it, you're not the one killing the person, but you order, let's say, what Hitler killed this many people, just the mere fact that you're not experiencing it and your mind is not recording it, doesn't that reduce?
Good question, but what do you think? So you ordered it, right? So karma is collected.
Because the mind can trick you. I mean, it can just be so minimized. It's just like a number. It's like, how many people do you want to kill? Oh, let's do this many.
Yeah. No, of course he can trick, but there is a level of aware. If he ordered it, he knows the recording has occurred. Yeah, the recording has occurred. X number of, and you can't at whatever level of substrata consciousness. Yeah, which doesn't. A
That
consciousness that you're not
experience.
aware of, like so consciously aware of, doesn't mean it's not there, okay? Ordering millions of beings to be terminated as a thought is a karma.
Right, but is it the same as going individually and like, look somebody eye to eye and
Mhm.
experience their emotion?
What did in
But 90% of karma is your intention.
Mhm.
So you're still
Nice.
deciding that, right? So like you're still aware that
So it's
you're
intention over a very broad. Nice
Right,
answer.
right.
Cool. Let me move on. Otherwise, we're never going to stop. I'm glad that you all want to talk about it, but you should have talked about it in the karma course. Okay. So the source is karma, right?
The source?
The source. And mentally afflicted things. Let's say negative states of mind. I'm gonna go a little weird on you a second, yeah? Nyomo and nyomo pa. Let's say negative states of mind and in 84,000 flavors, yeah? The 84,000 flavors of afflicted beings. So why am I calling states of mind afflicted beings?
because you're not directly perceiving emptiness.
So where is this land? And where is this computer? And where is this thing if not colored by your mind? Yeah? So the main game is the mind. That's why you have the whole mind-only school, right? They interpret the Buddhist teaching to say it's mainly mind. Because I know it's all mind. It's not all mind, right? But it's mainly mind. So as soon as you've got a color on the consciousness that interacts with reality, with this reality, then that thing becomes of the flavor of the thing that you're imputing on, yeah, engaging with it. So if you have ignorance, this thing has ignorance. If you're afflicted, this thing afflicts you. Does that make sense? Cool. The fact of the end of suffering. So then it occurs to you, you bump into suffering, you're like, I'm sick of it. What made it happen? Look for the source of suffering. It could be the actions of body, speech, and mind, right? And the things we engage with, the 84,000 flavors. And then it might occur to you that you can end it, which it connects. It implies that you want to kill off number 2, yeah? It implies that you say, if I remove it at the source, then I don't have to suffer. That's how we bump into it, yeah? You're like, oh, it's hurting. What did I do to hurt? If I just stop doing that, then it will stop, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So the fact of the end of suffering, here, do you know the word gaccha? The thing we deny, right? And I don't want to get into it now, but we covered it a bit. What's the thing we deny? Self-existent thing. The self, right? So my early interpretation of Buddhism was A, completely wrong, but B, it got me hooked to this idea of no self, right? What's no self? What do you mean no self? I am here. There is a self. There's a Hector. There's something in this self. Yeah, self-existent. There is no self-existent thing. No thing that exists by itself, separate to everything else, from its own accord, by its own power, right? There is nothing in your world that is not dependent on something else. And there are 4 different schools of thought about what interdependence is, self-dependent origination, how do things originate, what do they depend on, 4 interpretations of what emptiness is, 4 interpretations of what the gaccha is, what the thing that each of the schools denies. I'm jumping all the way to the Prasangika, Majjhimika Prasangika, the high school, the school that we've been learning from. And that says, so what is no self in that school? What is emptiness? What is it that we deny in that school? any answer, doesn't matter,
Things-
because whatever
things come
answer.
from their own side.
Sorry, that things exist
come
on their
from
own side. So
yeah.
we are denying that this school is based on the whole thing that undermines the ignorance, which is the defunct energy that produced the suffering in the first place. So this world was turning to shit anyway. It's not your fault, okay? It doesn't matter. It was going to turn bad anyway. It's not your fault. There's some energy in this world and the vessel that turns things sour. Yeah, in a way, it's not your fault. It was going to turn out this way because it started off bad. The body that you're in is going to turn bad. It's not your fault. It is the way it is. Yeah, but it is the way it is because of our actions, the source of suffering, and our afflicted mind engaging with this thing in an ignorant way. Ignorant of the fact that things don't have self-existence, that they're not the way they are out there, the way they seem to us from their own side. There is no angry boss other than the angry boss that you generated in your consciousness and imputed upon the emptiness of that being. And the proof of that is that when a person, the boss is yelling at you and someone's watching, someone's laughing, the boss thinks he's clever, and you're the only one feeling stupid. You feeling stupid comes from you, him feeling clever comes from him, and the other person laughing comes from them. It's a different way of viewing the world, but that's the way of wisdom, looking at the world through that lens, not through the self-existent lens. So the thing that we deny, and here it gets a little bit tricky, is the gaccha. Gaccha means to choke, to dry reach, vomit, learn, get stuck, obstruction, etc. is the intellectual understanding of emptiness. The thing that we deny is that things exist out there separate from us, right? The Prasangika school says dependent origination means things arise independent to your projections of your mind. The things are because something occurred from your mind onto this experience and called it, experienced it this way. Not by choice, it just is that way. By choices you made a long time ago, but right now it feels like the way it is. But the way it is not the way it is from its own side. It's not self-existent. Now that's the gaccha. That's the thing we deny. There is nothing like that. So there's two kinds of gaccha for those that remember gaccha from before. The first one is the gaccha that says intellectually, like my consciousness is aware that this whole relationship is not the way it seems. That there isn't this angry boss out there making me angry. Intellectually, I fully and completely understand that the anger arising from me is dependent on my being angry in the past, nothing to do with that vessel. And if I want more anger, I better be angry at them, because with that ignorance is how I created the anger in the first place. Or if I want to stop that anger for good, then I'm facing this and I'm hoping it's the last time that ugly thing shows up. And I'll do whatever I need to with this boss, with my motivation, karma, to cut at the ignorance that produced it in the first place. And sometimes I'll be kind to them, and sometimes I'll be sorry to them, but mostly I'll be compassionate. It's not them forcing upon me the anger. Yeah? The thing we deny is that, the impulse to say, you did it to me. That just creates more samsara. That's the first thing. Now, the way it truly ends, so that's good intellectually, right? But I don't live like that, and you, if you're normal, you don't live like that. The reason they're not called the Four Noble Truths, the reason they're called the Four Arial Truths, is because you have this experience at the path of seeing. Upon this experience called seeing emptiness directly, where you realize the truth, if you like, you see the code behind the matrix, You intellectually, you come down from that experience, you have these 4 aerial truths throughout the rest of that day, you recognize that the world truly is suffering, that everything you've ever interacted with and everything in it is suffering. You see that it's not produced by the angry boss or out there the way ignorantly we thought we were, but it comes from you, your actions, your karma, your afflicted mind. You are the source of it. You have all, there's the defunct is in your stream, but you don't identify with it as me. It's a code. And then you recognize that you can stop it for sure, because you have an intellectual understanding. After that experience, imagine opening the door to the fabric of your universe, seeing the code that says, this is what makes you suffer, that you think things exist out there separate to you, that you think the boss is making you angry, that you think the lover got you upset, that you think you're fat because, that if you open the fabric to the universe and you see the code of what's causing you suffering, and then in 10-15 minutes that code shuts down and you return back here to planet samsara, and then you say, I have just seen a truth, and that truth gives you the intellectual capacity to stop the thing we deny. The world still appears to you as if the boss is getting you angry. Those things are still caused. You made them. They're still coming. You just know for a fact right now that they are not the way they seem. And so that intellectual understanding, the gotcha, stop by the path of seeing, is an understanding from that moment on, from that magical moment on, you recognize that truly you can stop all suffering. The next gotcha is a little bit deeper. It's the gotcha, the thing we deny. Again, it's emptiness, right? It's a self-existent thing, sorry. But it's done through this flawless reasoning called Madhyamika reasoning. I'll give you a quick example, right? The one that Geshe-Michael used in the 90s was of an 8 foot, I think, purple elephant, something like this. And the Madhyamika reasoning that lands you to this realization of emptiness itself is like saying, let's find a purple 2-headed pink elephant in this room, a 6 foot purple pink 2-headed pink elephant in this room, right? Now, Madhyamika reasoning will say, let's divide the room into all the possible areas this 6 foot life-size 2-headed purple elephant could exist. It could exist in this main room, or it could exist outside this main room on this floor, right? They're the two main areas. So Madhyamika reasoning says, let's look for something, let's define the area where it could possibly be, because it can't be inside the PowerPoint because it's a 6 foot elephant, right? It can't be hiding in the little box up there. So we already know for what, because we have some idea of what we're looking for, what a 6 foot 2-headed pink elephant would look like. We have this idea, right? So we start looking. Is it in this room? No. Hmm?
Could be in one of the other realms.
Well, no, I'm saying with your cognition, with your awareness, with just simple looking, are you able to find a 6? No? Is it in that room over there that you can see all the way to the kitchen? No? Do you want to go and check behind the door? No? Do you think it's in that room over here? Or in the other room?
It might be.
Right, it might be. So let's assume that it could be, so let's go check. Come back from checking, right? And was it there? No.
But it snuck over here while we were looking at the other.
Let's divide and go looking. Okay. So then we've established the fact of no 2-headed 6 foot pink elephants in this room. Yeah? We've just established that fact. That could never exist in the first place, right? We knew that anyway. but we went looking regardless. This structure, stopped by that kind of reasoning, is, okay, let's look for that self-existent thing. If the angry boss did, in fact, produce all my anger, if he really was the source of my suffering from his own side, if suffering just emanated from him like rats out of an aqueduct, yeah, if that, to quote Monty Python, if that thing came from him, then we should be able to establish it. Let's look for the boundaries. If that thing came from him, let's put the boss over here, and let's put other recipients other than me in front of him. Yeah? Let's put animal realm people, and human people, and children people, and ugly people, and happy people. Let's put a bunch of them. And everyone, if it was coming from him, it must, every single thing that engaged with him must have that experience. When he said those words, you're fired, yeah? Or you're silly, or why didn't you give me the report, or whatever. So then you put that in front of that boss, and you know you don't get, just like we pretended to look, right? You know you don't get the same response. There was never a boss like that from their own side created those experiences. You know, because the little baby in the pram was laughing. You know, his wife is going, great, if he's cutting their pace, I'm getting more diamonds. I don't know, you know, etc., etc. So there is something that is stopped through that reasoning, and here it's implied that it's actually in meditation, in an experience of emptiness. So it's a little deeper. And then there's the fact of the path out. Yeah? And you can group these things, you know the 5 paths, right? I'll cover them when we come back anyway. There's 4 really steps that you must go through, regardless if you're medium scope or greater scope, to get out of suffering. And we'll cover that. And you can divide those, you can put a line in the sand. If you remember that the mind pulsing, right, non-stop, goes to infinity. From the beginning of infinity, it never started. It was always there. And it goes forward, forward, forward all the way. But you can draw a line in the middle of that long spaghetti mind and say, at the point of opening the fabric to reality and getting an understanding of how things truly work, upon seeing emptiness directly is the words we use to describe that experience, having an experience of the divine, seeing God. I don't know what other people that have had this experience called it, but they called it something. And in this Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it's called emptiness, wisdom. Upon seeing emptiness directly, you become a very different being. Why? Because you can't be fooled by the illusion. You can't be fooled anymore by the fake fabric of what makes us suffer. From that moment on, you are a completely changed thing. You're no longer bound for the realm of samsara. You can't. You know something. You know how to work the system in a way that was impossible to you before. So you can divide the fact out of suffering in those beings before seeing emptiness and those beings after seeing emptiness. And that's what I want to cover when we come back. So take a 7-minute break, come back at 9:05, and then I'll cover that. Thank you. I'll talk a lot. There's a lot of content.
What's the M by MW reasoning?
Middle way reasoning, Majjhima.